Hello and welcome to this session of Dolby Atmos Music Community Sessions. I'm Ben Givarz, Senior Creative Relations Manager with the Dolby Music Partnerships team based in Los Angeles, and we'll be evolving the music creation webinar series a little bit in our scope and content with features that include additional Dolby Atmos music experts from within our organization, while also continuing to feature discussions with you, our friends and partners from across the Atmos music creative community, to tell your stories and feature some of the amazing work that you're doing out there in the field. We'll continue to make this an interactive session, so please continue to submit your questions to musicwebinars@dolby.com ahead of the sessions and into the chat. We'd also love to hear your feedback and content ideas, so if you have a session idea or something you'd like to see covered, please send those along. Truly one of the most valuable parts of these sessions is our collective sharing of knowledge, and it's with your input that our resources continue to evolve and grow. And we always like to highlight the various resources available for the community at learning.dolby.com and professional.dolby.com. And as mentioned, we're all going to be featuring some of the people involved with those efforts in these sessions. Some of the resources you're probably familiar with include our quick start videos created for various DAWs, our 6-part 101 video series by the Dolby Institute with Luke Argilla and Maggie Tobin. We have some new additions to that series coming soon, so excited to share those with you very shortly. We have an active user forum where you can submit technical and ecosystem questions and interact with our support teams. Our professional page also houses our music studios onboarding form where you can submit your studio information to receive guidance from our studio teams on implementation, creative, and label onboarding forms to connect you directly to our music team for support as well. So today, super excited to be joined by a member of Dolby who is at the forefront of developing and making many of the learning resources and tools available. John Scanlon, Senior Manager of Dolby Institute and Events. John's key in implementing the Dolby Atmos music curriculum into various educational programs around the world, and as part of the Dolby Institute is really dedicated to empowering the next generation of creatives in a lot of very cool ways. So thanks for joining, John.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the Dolby Institute mission.
Yeah, so thanks for the intro. As you mentioned, John Scanlon with the Dolby Institute. Ben, you and I work together on a lot of these initiatives, especially surrounding Dolby Atmos music and getting that out into the content creation community. The Dolby Institute, we have a lot of different resources on our website and also in person. Some of those include the Sound and Image Lab hosted by Glenn Kaiser, which discusses different upcoming films, both independent and feature films, and talks about sound design, mixing, etc., and also now imaging as well in Dolby Vision, even outside of Dolby Atmos, so all Dolby technologies combined. We have a lot of training materials on the site. You mentioned a couple of those, learning.dolby.com, so we link directly from there. Tutorial videos and the Dolby Atmos for Music 101 creation series with Luke and Maggie that you helped to put together. We're also looking to foster that same community with educators and students, and we're featuring some partner universities that we work closely with as far as implementation of Dolby Atmos, both for post-production and music, and also featuring student work. And we really want to get this community or create a more robust community for educators to bounce ideas, talk about how they're implementing the curriculum in their own programs, and then feature some of the student work that's coming out of those programs to really showcase what Dolby Atmos can do for creativity.
That's awesome. And one of the key concepts of Atmos music creation is that the system is flexible and designed to fit into existing workflows. And you just mentioned you've been able to fit that into different educational programs and particularly at different levels of instruction. How do you kind of work together with the curriculums and the various learning facilities to implement Atmos music education?
Yeah, what we're really trying to do is provide these resources for universities because they're restricted at times with budget and timeline. They're working in semester cycles and stuff, so timing is key, and budget sometimes is there and other times is not. So we're really trying to work with universities to help them to understand that, number one, you don't have to build a Dolby Atmos studio right from the start. and you don't have to go out and buy all new equipment. That's a common misconception. So what I'll do is I'll speak one-on-one with the university, speak with either, their administrators or their program directors or technical people that help run the studios, figure out what they have, then figure out what equipment they can use to supplement that to get Atmos into their workflow. Number two, the most important part, I think, is that once you're in that process of upgrading your studio, how can you start teaching Dolby Atmos and the tool sets before you get to that point? You obviously need a studio, right, to mix and master in at the end of your projects, but you can teach about 80 to 85% of the curriculum on a laptop with headphones binaurally. So learning system signal flows, workflows, right, how to do, mixes and re-renders and stuff like that can all be done on a laptop with headphones, and that saves the university a lot of money and a lot of footprint inside the establishment, and also gives universities time to ramp up their facilities to get to that studio point.
Nice. And a lot of the learning material is also available on our website at learning.dolby.com, which also can lead folks to the range of user tutorials which are out there, the quick start videos, the Atmos Music Creation 101 series, which kind of takes viewers all the way through from the basic concepts to, headphone workflows, QC and delivery. And that was really created from like a music and home studio framework. How do you see that kind of evolving and continuing to grow in conjunction with the self-paced learning that's out there?
Yeah, so the lift that we're trying to take off of the university is the time that it would take to learn the tools, create curriculum around the tools, and then be able to beta test those tools with their students. And looking at students coming up in a university program or any other learning center beyond university, is that we are trying to make that as easy as possible. So by handing over complete curriculum sets where people can actually take this in part or as whole, we've created sort of an a la carte module where you can pick and choose what you need for your facility. And then also focusing on not only younger learners, but all content creators in general, right? So how can I get started with that home studio set in mind, right? In the way that I walk around with a laptop and I've got a set of headphones, how can I start to use the tools there? How can I use the tools in a place like I'm sitting in right now, right? In sort of a bedroom based home studio, or, an independent studio that's a little bit more nicely equipped than what I'm sitting in right now, that's actually doing pro mixes, but is a smaller facility. And so we're trying to make sure that we're covering all the bases from the, elite mix rooms all the way down to the independent producer, of which there are, millions of them right now out there today that are producing, composing, etc., in smaller workspaces around the world.
Nice. And that really kind of speaks to the Institute's mission of making the resources accessible for anyone and lowering the barrier to entry and making sure that people have the resources available to them in whatever situation they're in, which is awesome. You mentioned that, part of the work you're doing now also has evolved to showcase some of the work that students are doing out there in the community. What are some of the programs that are maybe music or, other focuses related that are shining a spotlight on some of the work that students are doing?
Yeah, so right now we've had a partnership with San Francisco State University where we've got some great student work out of. CalArts is a school in Australia. We're finding that a lot of schools now are looking at Dolby Atmos music and are not only thinking of it in stereo to Dolby Atmos remix, right, but immersive audio creation from the beginning. And so we're getting lots of great feedback and honestly research on their part as well as on ours. How do you think about this from the tracking point, from the recording point, knowing that you're ultimately going to produce in Dolby Atmos and then take that Dolby Atmos mix with and then create all of your deliverables from that, right? So how can you change the whole line of thinking there, and that you're no longer locked into, right, this 2D sort of stereo spectrum. You now have this immersive space to create. And beyond that, what we're doing is we're taking that as well to and trying to create some social impact and taking that outside of university and traditional education systems into spaces like I'm installing a mix room at the Academy Museum in LA where students will come from high schools around the area and be able to learn how to produce and then record Foley, ADR, sound design, etc. Inside a Dolby Atmos mix room. Ben, you've been instrumental in us working with Engineers, which is an independent mix collaborative. I'll call them that. think that's probably a good way to describe them. Headed by Derek Ali, and they're looking at certifying people in Dolby Atmos for their platform, so that independent engineers can get work with major labels. And then focusing on other groups, like She Is the Producer, a little later this year, which is all female producers, artists, composers, and engineers, and teaching them the ways to use Ableton and Dolby Atmos and Logic and Dolby Atmos and all these other platforms to be able to create content and think about composition in Dolby Atmos as well as recording, mixing, and mastering in Dolby Atmos.
Nice, man. So many exciting things going on with Dolby Institute across the world. It's really exciting. If folks want to get involved with Dolby Institute, maybe there's a university or an educational facility that wants to partner up with you, where do they go to find out more?
Yeah, please go to dolby.com/institute, and there's an education page there, and you'll also see all the happenings going on inside Dolby Institute and what we're creating. You teased a couple of new videos, Ben, that you're working on adding to the Dolby Atmos Music 101 creation series, which are coming up soon. Those are great. We also have multi-language stuff available now for other regions in the world. We've really spread throughout the different geos with the help of a lot of our colleagues at Dolby, talking to other universities. And we're building more and more curriculum sets as more tools come online and more training videos to be able to teach to every type of learner, whether it's text-based or whether it's video learning, and creating content and exercises that people can download for free, so that they can actually walk through the tool sets on their own and have all of those assets at their disposal. So dolby.com/institute, please drop us a note. Happy to have a one-on-one meeting. We do lots of guest lectures with universities and students, and looking forward to connecting with more educators and students out there.
That's awesome, man. And congratulations on everything that you're doing and all of the success that Dolby Institute has had with forwarding education and really making the resources available, spotlighting all the great work that's happening out there in the world. So thank you for your time, John.
Thanks, Ben. A lot of this is due to your help. So thank you.
To introduce Natalia Schlesinger and Robin Reumers of Art House and Abbey Road Institute in Miami. They have put into market the Atmos educational curriculum developed by Dolby Institute in a working boutique studio in Miami. It's a truly beautiful space, really designed for artists' creativity and expression and education, with a wonderfully diverse group of instructors. Welcome, both of you. Thank you for being here.
Awesome.
Hello, Ben. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yes.
Natalia, you're a musician, a mix engineer, and an educator. Tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to the studio there in Miami.
Well, I've been a musician. I mean, I've been playing piano since I was a little girl, so music has been with me all my life. And I grew up in Bogota, Colombia. I started studying music there, and after that I came to Miami to do a master's degree in the University of Miami. That's where I got to meet Julio Reyes, Copello. And while I was doing my master's, I started an internship here in Art House, and I've been here since then. So it's been amazing. I've grown a lot in this studio with them. So.
Nice, that's great. Robin, you're the director of education there. You're a mix and mastering engineer. Give us a little bit of background on the studio and some of the clients and work that's been done there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're very fortunate to be like in an active studio. That's also something we wanted for the school. We wanted to be like a boutique experience, but in an active studio. So we've been very fortunate, like in, the last couple of years, we've had artists like Christina Aguilera, Mark Anthony, Jennifer Lopez, Alejandro Sanz. I mean, there's so many of them that have come here to like either record, write, produce, mix, do anything to their project, and it's been like a really cool experience to be in the middle of that, especially for students to be inside of an active studio. I think it's really unique experience.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful creative space with like such a nice layout. I mean, what's the philosophy of the studio, and why was it important to implement Atmos into the curriculum there?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, I think the philosophy of the studio itself, actually, when it started, was really to create like a unique creative vibe, because I think Julio really wanted to create something where you feel at home, where you feel comfortable, And so all of the spaces that you have here are like very inspiring, and that I think is like the number one thing that I think is cool about the studio, and also the reason why artists love coming here. Then about the Atmos question, the second part of your question, I mean, I think it's very apparent. It's like there's so many requests, and all the projects we do as well. It's like they're requests, and they're asking for Atmos mixes, which that is really great. Of course, it's also a lot of fun to create them, but it's really great that there is demand, that there is actually people asking for this. So that kind of inspired us. I mean, already like 2 years ago, like to set up a dedicated room and create a lot of content. That's what we're doing here.
Yes, for sure. I think the technology is also amazing, and part of the philosophy of Art House is also to use these new technologies, and create more things that are like more creative. I don't know, like new ideas, and that keep like pushing forward on whatever we're also doing here with artists. So
That's great. And you mentioned that the students are being credited on the records for their engineering work. Natalia, what's been the students' reaction to learning how to mix in Atmos?
they are loving it. I mean, every time they come here into the studio, they're like, wow, this sounds amazing. And for them being able to like work on projects that are like, they're real projects that are going to be out there from artists, and being able to look how it works and be part of it and listen to everything has been amazing. They're loving it, and every time they want to be more involved on it. So that's great.
And how about the first time they hear Atmos? Are they do you see their wheels turning? And creatively, Robin, are they sort of thinking about all of the different ways that they can express themselves and create in Atmos?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very an individual experience. I would say there's certain people who have, after 5 seconds of listening, they already like all of the creative ideas starts flowing. There are others like they take a little while. So like we actually on purpose built a curriculum that way, where they first experience it, but then they have some time to let it sink in before they actually go hands-on. Because for certain people, like it takes some time, like to wrap your head around like all the possibilities.
Nice. So Natalia, you and Robin mixed the new Sebastian Yatra record in Atmos, and tell us a little bit about the work you've done on that record and kind of how you and Robin work together to sort of balance the creative and technical processes.
Yes, I mean, I think Robin and I have made a very cool team, right?
Yeah.
I think it's been very fun. I mean, Jatra's album was very cool to work with, because part of the album it is that each song is very unique. It's very different. So it's not like you start mixing and all the songs are the same. Each song is like a different challenge and a different world. So it really challenged us to try different things, move things around differently, find different sounds, and it was very cool. I think we played a lot until we found like what things we liked best and worked better for each individual song. And yeah, kind of the way we work is Robin usually preps the song and opens it up amazingly. When I come in, it's already like super huge and very immersive, and I like kind of just like start playing. My job is to play around and to move things up, and then we get together and again, and between the both of us like finish and like the little details and like the final sound of the song. So that's happened, but we've also done it in different ways. So it's like kind of a teamwork, and that's how we did Jatra's album.
Nice. Robin, do you think that there's anything that Dolby Atmos allows you to do creatively in the mix with Latin music specifically that's maybe unique to the genre creatively?
I mean, I think that the Latin genre in general is so broad. I mean, it can be anything from reggaeton to like salsa records. So I think every project would be very unique, but what I think that comes back in all of them is the ability to open up the space and to really think about the spaces in a new way. Like for a lot of mix engineers, I think it's challenging at first, because we're all so used to thinking about two speakers and thinking about frequency and how to fit everything in this little box, and that's the mindset. I mean, that's the mindset we've had like for forever. and to now no longer have to think that way and actually have to think in a different way of like, where do things belong, where do they come to their fruition. That I think is just a different mindset, but I think it's not specific to the Latin genre. I think it comes with everything. Yeah, I don't know.
Yes, for sure. Yes, there's a lot of things very different in the Latin genre, as you were saying. So it's every song and every project is like its own world.
Yeah, that's exciting. And you've also mixed together two of Juanes' earlier records in Atmos. Natalia, how was that experience mixing a fellow Colombian artist with such history?
Yeah, I mean that was like a dream, literally, because I really know all Juanes' song by heart, so it was very fun to like get those songs that I know in my head, you know, and like trying to put them and imagine them in a different way that I've been hearing them for so many years. So yeah, getting to mix that was amazing. Also, when you go into Atmos, you start listening to all the little parts of the arrangements that sometimes in stereo are not as evident as you can have them in Atmos. So I don't know, a string arrangement can be like super immersive, and you can hear like the violins moving around, and like every little detail has its own space. So mixing Juanes was amazing. I was very happy during those days.
I think what was really cool about that record, yeah, what you were saying in particular is like the string arrangement, because like there are certain songs where when you listen to it in stereo, you hear certain layers, but there are certain things that like are not apparent, and like especially to people who have listened to this for hundreds of times, and like seeing her like discover things of like, wow, I never knew this was part of the song. I think that was kind of cool.
That was very cool. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, Atmos can be very revealing in that way, right? And when you're so familiar with the record and you're sort of hearing it again almost for the first time, it can really be impactful and powerful to hear these elements that maybe at one time were sort of fighting for space and now have all this room to breathe. Sure. Let's talk for a minute about the studio founder, Julio Reyes Capello. He's had a tremendous impact on the Latin music community in Miami and has really been a pioneer on many fronts. He's pioneering Atmos first workflows as well, and partnering with young up and coming students and producers to further their careers. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there and with his efforts.
Julio, he is, as you were saying, he is amazing. I've admired him also for like so many years. All the music I heard was mainly done by him. And he has this amazing like philosophy that goes with what we were talking about from the studio, and it's like really making music that inspire us, that feeds like the emotions, and everything that goes with that is amazing. Also, he's an amazing musician, so everything he does, it's really impactful. I think all the artists that get to work with him get like really inspired by his musicality and the way that he does things. So he's amazing, and everything that I've been able to see and work with here in the studio has like been like on the top. So yes, I admire him very much.
Like as a mentor, I think what's really cool also about his philosophy is like, I mean, this happened again yesterday when we were working, is that like he always wants to get the most out of the project. It will never be, oh, let's do this quickly, let's do this simple thing. It will always be like, if I need to spend the entire night working on something to make it the best, that's what's going to happen. And I think that's really good to have as a role model, like for students to see that like putting in the extra effort to make it the absolute best you can. And then also having that same philosophy with like, okay, there's new opportunities. I can do new things with music like Dolby Atmos. Like I want to make the most out of this, and I want to put everything I can, my creative effort, to get the most out of it.
Yes, for sure.
And he's sort of beginning with Atmos in mind on some of his projects as well, and kind of pioneering this sort of Atmos first workflow that we're starting to see more of.
Yeah, that was like his first reaction of like, back many years ago when like we first listened to immersive in general, to have him say like, I wish one day I can use this and actually work on a project from scratch and actually, have this in mind of all the possibilities I can do, and do this in effortless way. You know, don't like it shouldn't be cumbersome to actually do it, but do it in a way that's natural. And you know, this is finally there. You know, he's now doing that and working on projects and starting with projects with all of the possibilities in mind.
Yes, which is very cool because creating things from scratch in Atmos like sets you up like in a different mindset, and it's very different and brings up new ideas. And having someone like with the creativity like Julio, he just comes with this technology and he's already creating like a lot of new things that are very cool and sound really good in Atmos.
That's awesome. So how can people learn more about what's going on at Abbey Road Institute and the Art House, and how can they get involved if they want to be a part of the educational program you have going on?
I would definitely check out our like social media channels. We kind of try to keep that up to date, and like and the website. You know, we have a lot of information on the website. There's a contact form. Like, feel free to reach out. Like, we're really passionate about like sharing our knowledge and just creating this kind of community of people that wanna learn and wanna be the best in their field, and just really passionate people.
Yes,
that's
for sure.
what we're trying
That's
to.
100%.
Well, I had the pleasure of visiting recently and meeting both of you and the rest of your fantastic staff there and some of your students, and really just thrilled with what you have going on there. And it was just an honor and a pleasure to hang with you both and the rest of the team, and look forward to continuing to share what you have going on there with our community and abroad.
Great, we would love that.
Thank
Like,
you.
it's
Yes.
it's an honor for us as well to you know, have you guys come here and like do this. So
For
thank you.
sure. Yes.
Hello, so very happy to be joined by John, Natalia, and Robin again here live with everyone. And just also wanted to say again that a few of the links and destinations that were mentioned in the piece that you can take a look at. John mentioned the Academy Museum at academymuseum.org, the engineers platform that Derek Ali is on at engineers.com. She is the producer, and FemHouse's immersive bootcamp program is at thisisfemhouse.com. At Art House Miami at miamiart.house. And the Sebastian Yatra Dharma record is available on enabled streaming services and Atmos now as well. So very excited about all of those. And a few of the resources that you are probably familiar with that we just wanted to make sure that you have links to is our content creation quick start guide here with FAQs and documentations, tutorials and downloads for getting started on individual DAWs, and everything you need for workflow delivery and best practices. Our studio enablement and design tools are available for you as well at all of these links. So please scan those QR codes and have a look at those. And download a 90-day trial of the Dolby Atmos production suite, which you are probably familiar with. So very happy to have the folks join us once again now.
Hello.
For Q&A, which we actually have a lot of pre-submitted Q&A questions here. So very interested in how students can learn to mix in Atmos in headphones first, Robin and Natalia. Is that something that you're teaching at the Abbey Road Institute there? And how do you kind of go through that process?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, like definitely like in terms of setup, we actually, I mean, we have the privilege of having a room here. So we actually start out by listening to Atmos content here. But then when they actually start creating themselves, that's indeed when they start, you know, on their own computer, which could be a laptop, but in our case is an iMac. So they can learn all the technical side, you know, like how to do the routing, yeah, how to set up the renderer, you know, all the settings you have to go through. And then when it's time to be creative, we go to the studio and that's where they actually do the mixing. But there's a lot of things nowadays you can do on headphones, and especially when you're just starting out, like you can do a lot and get very familiar, because at some point you kind of have to know the technical side like inside out, so you can actually forget about it when you get into the studio and just be creative.
Yes, exactly. Just come into the studio and already know all the workflow, so you can like experiment with your creative ideas and make sure that what you're hearing on the studio, you're gonna be able like to make it fast and yeah, and get to the creative part of it. So.
And John, a lot of the work that you do to enable people to and kind of lower the barrier to entry for working in Atmos kind of includes headphone workflows and kind of getting up and running with a laptop and headphones. Of course, that's not the entire creation process, but how do you kind of get people up and running when it comes to getting going in headphones and headphone mixing?
Yeah, I mean, it's been especially important for the remote world that we're still in to some point and probably will be for forever, right? A little bit, but especially during the last couple of years in the pandemic, we were able to deliver lectures and introductions to the software and workflows remotely with the Dolby Atmos renderer using binaural. And I mean, if we look at the history of audio, headphones have always been in the mix, right? At least for the last 50 years, right? We're always checking stereo mixes on speakers, headphones, in cars, and home theaters as well. So learning on headphones is nothing new. The ability then for, as Robin mentioned, studio time is valuable. Anybody on this call, right? That's like that's a known thing. Studio time is the most valuable asset. So why teach all of the necessary workflows inside a studio when you can teach the fundamental workflows on a laptop with headphones, and then when you get in the studio, like Robin said, focus on the creative side of mixing in Dolby Atmos and use that studio time for what it's there for, right? To create and make art, make music. Yeah.
Nice. Thomas asked here, what is your speaker setup, Robin and Natalia, and what is your preferred choice of narrow versus widespread speakers?
Okay, so we here have so we have an interface called the Avid MTRX that has inside like a calibration card, and that is then being fed to our PMC set. So for the fronts, we have it's called 8.2s, which is the new models. And then for the surrounds, there are CI 45s. And then we also have 2 subs. Forgot the exact model for that. I mean, in general, in terms of like dispersion of a speaker, I personally like, especially like the mid-range, to kind of have a bigger dispersion. And I really like that with the PMCs, for example. They really work well. They have like a nice balance between not being like too focused but also being immersive, as in giving you that space. So I always feel it's a balance, right? It's like finding the good ground, and I feel like with PMC that's definitely there.
And Trammell asked, how do you prefer to manage your system's LFE?
That's a good question. When we did the calibration here together with PMC and with Dolby, we looked into that in detail, and especially like our surrounds, for example, they don't go below probably 60, like 50, 60. So we do kind of a base management, but we don't do it in the Dolby renderer side. We do it in the DADMAN, which is the software that controls the Avid MTRX. So we do some sort of base management for the surrounds that they go through the LFE. The fronts, they don't, they're full range. We tried actually to see if it would help to add a little bit, but that didn't work. Like it didn't actually help anything. So yeah, for the surrounds, there is a 20 hertz to 50 hertz, like a little bit there just to fill up the low end, and all the rest is like the fronts, the LCR is full range.
Nice, and it sounds fantastic. I had the pleasure of hearing it myself, so well done. Kia asks to Natalia, what advice do you have for a young woman musician who's looking to get into engineering and production?
That's a great question. I mean, I would say that sometimes there's like a lot of noise. You have a lot of things you receive still, like as women, and but my advice would be like don't let anything of that like come into your head. What you have to focus on is just like putting your heart and soul and all your hard job on making, and just believing that you can do it. Like don't let anything of that make you think that you cannot do something, or that you cannot achieve, or that you're not enough, or whatever. it is, because definitely, I mean, we can and we are doing it, and just hard work and like putting everything you have on it is gonna, it's gonna be, you know, that's what's gonna get you like to be a great music producer and engineer.
I love that. Thank you.
Hmm.
This one for John. Do schools and programs that teach Dolby Atmos music production need to be vetted and or approved and in the same way that Avid certifies a Pro Tools engineer?
Yes and no. So we do have partnerships that we create with universities. We ask those universities to stay in constant touch with us if they're using our curriculum. We especially like to see student work when it comes out at the end, right? We want to know, we want to create a partnership that's mutually beneficial. We've done a lot of work to create all these tools that schools can actually just take and implement immediately into their programs, and also all the curriculum is there as well for people if they would like to just do self-paced learning if they're not in school, if they're an independent engineer and just want to learn. And then we want to see that feedback, right? We want to see what's being created out there, and we want to get these ideas, since this it's not necessarily a new format, right? But it is, you know, a new world of immersive audio. We want to see what people are creating and how they're using the tool sets to do this. So Dolby itself does not certify any engineers or any mixers. We partnered with Avid so that Avid could create a program where there's a Dolby Atmos certification. I imagine other schools will have certifications in Dolby Atmos production and stuff like that, and we will help those schools and partner with those schools on curriculum to make sure that we're all speaking the same language and teaching the same workflows that the engineers, you know, out there in the world that are producing the content are using. But Dolby itself does not certify engineers.
Yeah, thank you. And we had a question about certification for studios, and the answer to that is that there's also not a certification, so to speak, for Dolby Atmos music studios. We do ask that studios that are interested work with our music studios team using the music studios onboarding form to get guidance on implementation and design. You can connect directly with them at musicstudios@dolby.com, and we will help to connect you with resellers in some cases and make sure that you are, you know, qualifying to meet the best practices that we put out there for people and recommend for folks as well. Tarika asks the Abbey Road team, where are all the Abbey Road institutions and how can I find them?
Yeah, I think on our website you have like a checkbox where you can like switch locations. At the moment we have London, Paris, Amsterdam, Johannesburg, Sydney, Frankfurt, and Miami.
Nice, worldwide representing.
Yeah.
What are the full lengths of the courses and approximately how many students do you have in each class?
Like here in Miami, we're extremely boutique. Like we only have one class a year. I mean, all the programs are very similar between the schools. They typically focus on a 1-year term, so it's a 12-month program, September to September. But it's very focused. Like you literally have class, you know, 5 days a week, in lots of projects. It's a very intense and dedicated program. But it's 1 year, and here we only accept 10 students. So as you saw when you visited, like it's a small like kind of family vibe and school, because that's what we want. Like we want to be able to focus on each individual and help them all figure out their own path, and that's why we felt, you know, important to keep it small.
Yes, for sure. Like keep like the mentorship also kind of education more than like a big room. Just like each person needs like has their own path. So that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, and it's such a warm and welcoming environment. Some of the students that I spoke to are like so excited to be part of like being musicians themselves and kind of moving over into engineering, being part of this, you know, really creative space and having a lot of freedom and flexibility to work in a small group setting. It just seemed like the creativity was flowing and people were just so excited. And I also want to mention that, you know, we also did a session with Pensado's Place, this group here that's available on Pensado's Place and Dolby Institute site as well. If you want to get a little bit more information and hear some additional conversation with Dave and Herb, that's out there as well. And also stay tuned for a profile series that we have coming up featuring the Abbey Road Institute in Miami, and Robin, Natalia, some students, and Julio as well makes a surprise appearance. So we're excited to share that as well. This is kind of a mastering question, I guess, for you, Robin, but considering that audio quality can be very subjective, what are some of your tips and tricks to kind of ensure the best possible mastering chain or successful master?
Well, I think that's obviously very tricky. Just like as in stereo, I think there's no like ultimate right way of doing things. Like I think everything depends on the vibe of the song, what the song is looking for. And I mean, we do find that to be like particularly challenging in Atmos because, a lot of times when you, for example, mixing in Atmos something that has already been mastered in stereo, how do you, because in Atmos, you don't have the loudness limitation. You have to go for -18. So you don't need to fight for it to be loud. So how far do you go, and how much of the loudness that was in the stereo master was an artistic choice, as in part of the sound, the compression becomes part of it, versus how much was it like just being loud. And so for us, we love to involve like the producer or the artist, like whoever worked on the record, and get their input and seeing like how far do we push it, because we have to find like that right balance.
Exactly.
Because there's a way to make it too dynamic, so that when you listen, like the soft parts become too soft, so you don't want to go there. It's about finding the sweet spot, and I think that's always also what mastering has been, right? It's about finding what's the best delivery and what's like the sweet spot in terms of frequency response, dynamic response. So that it's definitely part of it in Atmos as well. So it's a very similar mindset, I think.
Yes, definitely.
Here's one for all three of you. This is an interesting one here. For those of us who have been in the industry for a long time, and we've put in an unwavering level of dedication, how do you teach or communicate to students the importance of work ethic?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Yes, go. I mean, I haven't been too many years in the industry, so.
I mean, first, I think it's always like leading by example, right? If they see the people working, like us working in the studio, they always see us here. When they arrive in the morning, we're already here, and when they leave at night, we're still here. So, I mean, I think part of it is like, having them see that people who actually work in the industry, they're really dedicated, and they make sure they meet their deadlines. And it is obviously it's a journey. Like we've had it with students where at some point they might get a bit flaky or they show up a bit late, but then we have to be strict. And I think the good thing is, if you see them day in, day out, and for a year, you can kind of coach them. And also personally, like I even give more opportunities to people who are always there, always show up, always work hard, than people who might not. So and they see that, and they're like, okay, if I want the opportunities, I need to work hard.
I also think that that values, like the human values, are also something very important in this industry. Also, I mean, everywhere, of course, but also in this industry, as we're doing art, everything you do, like personal wise, when you're working with somebody, you're gonna be able to hear it somehow in the final result. So all like punctuality, but also being good to each other, like being honest, being respectful, like being humble, all those values, I think they're like something that's very key in life and also in this industry. And I really appreciate it when people that are very like rich in values get to work together, because it's very inspiring and makes everything like better, like sound better somehow. It's like a mystery thing, but that's what I feel with that. So for sure, it's something that's very important for me in this industry.
Yeah, there's two things that I always think about when I think about how long I've been doing this, and I question how I've been able to do this, be lucky to do this for as long as I have. One is passion. I mean, it sounds cheesy, it sounds corny, but I can't see myself doing anything else but audio in some way, shape, or form, or technology, right? This is what I've been doing since I was a kid. I love it to the point where when work stops, I keep going. I'm working on my own stuff. I'm working on friend stuff. I'm collaborating with other people. You really have to love this to be in it and be able to be somewhat successful or successful enough to sustain yourself. And then two, similar to what you both just spoke of, is ego, right? Remember why we're in this. I mean, I always used to joke when I was teaching full time that when I was 5 years old, I didn't think about, oh, I want to grow up and push faders, right? You don't think about that when you're 5. You look at heroes, right? I want to be a superhero, or I want to be a doctor, or I want to be, right? But why I think this is so valuable and is because this is art. Ultimately, you're not there to work equipment. You're there to take somebody's idea and make it come out the other end, out of the speakers, and make somebody feel something. And so again, as corny as that sounds, I think that's the most important thing to remember, is that if you keep that at the forefront of your drive, right, as engineers, making sure that the artists are actually hearing what they want to hear come out of their projects, that's going to, make you successful for sure. So.
Well, those are all great answers. I think we could have a course alone on like student motivation when it comes to creating music, and particularly with art. Wow, now I'm pumped up, and I was already excited before. So thank you all three for that. Our friend Sam asks to the Miami team, what is the best tip you can share about mixing in Atmos?
The best tip, oh my god. I would say that for now, like playing around is like what is getting us to like cool sounds. Finding a space for everything first. That's what I kind of try to do, like finding the place where each individual thing sounds best, and still gives the song like like a one thing, like a glue thing, because it's still, as in stereo, you cannot have like a lot of instruments going on their own way. It's like you have to find the place of everything, but still make it one song and one thing that goes together, and try to find a way that all of these like puts the song like in a better place, and takes out the most of it. It's like a very broad tip, but that's kind of like what I try to keep in mind when I approach a mix.
Yeah, and I would also say, like, especially try to learn the tools and like which tools work best. Like, I mean, that's my personal thing. Like I love playing with new tools, like good reverbs, good delays, and working with up mixers, to take a stereo delay and turn that into like an immersive thing, and finding a lot of these different things, and write down or do however you do it, saying, okay, this worked well on this style vocal, this worked well, and then be able to use that when you actually have an actual mix. I think that's also very because
useful.
I mean, when you're actually mixing, we all know like your objectivity fades away after a while, so you want that once you start mixing, you can immediately apply what you think will work when you come up with the idea. So I think building that knowledge is key.
Definitely. Yeah.
Any tips from your side, John? Quick educational tips.
When you're starting from stereo to Atmos, it's new. It's especially if you're going from stereo to Atmos, you have all of this flexibility, and that's, I always joke, in the early 2000s, creating my first surround mix and listening to that now, there was sounds just flying all over the place that makes me sick to my stomach to listen to it now. Start to think about, I think Robin mentioned this earlier, right? If you're remixing, what's the intent of the song, right? Always keep that in mind. Don't use the technology just for the technology, right? But think about the intent of the song and how you can use the technology to translate that experience into the space. I think that's the most important thing. I still do it. I still catch myself doing it, just flipping stuff around throughout speakers just because it's fun. But again, that may completely take away from the experience of what the song is supposed to be about. So that's all I can say is just remember the intention of the track, and use this new space to be able to convey that message, in a better way than we ever have been before. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of room to work with, right? There's a lot of space to try new things and experiment, and we're sort of seeing a lot of the rules being written as we go along here, you know, with young people and people, you know, that are very advanced as well, kind of trying new things, playing with the space, seeing what's possible. I'm not sure if Robin or Natalia have had a chance to do this, but the question from Miguel is, have you approached doing an Atmos mix starting with a project that was in 7.1 or 5.1?
Mm, no, no, haven't.
Okay.
No.
We've mostly done like stereo, from stereo to Atmos, or from like the production itself that has not been mixed even in stereo. So that's definitely been a very interesting one, because once you have like stems, there's like already like a sound, and things are like already kind of set. But when the session is like still like the production session, where everything is like I mean, ready to mix, you can just like find a different sound. and and also we've also worked with Julio in starting to produce also from Atmos, which is also very cool, because the same ideas like flow differently, and you get to find like new creative ways. But unfortunately, no, we haven't come
Well,
from.
the only thing I just thought about was like we mixed the music for a film called Coati last year,
Yeah.
and that was first done in 5.1.
Yeah.
And then the end result was an Atmos mix, but this was for theater, so it was different. So for music specifically, no, but yeah, for film we have.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. And one more for the group here, and this one's come in a couple of times. Can you recommend any plugins, reverbs, or other tools?
You want me to?
Yes, go for it.
I mean, I definitely think like good reverbs and things like that are important. Like, I mean, we love like Altiverb has really good reverbs, impulse responses. Then we use Symphony from Exponential Audio, now by Isotope. Some good up mixers. I think Nugent. There's one called Aromatic.
Yes.
What else do we use?
Sleepwing.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, we use like Center One, which is like one of my plugins to take a stereo stem and then take the center out and you know be able to allocate that to just the center speaker or balance it. So that's
yeah,
what we use.
That one especially we've used for vocals. When you receive stereo stems, normally you receive a stereo stem for the vocal, and we found that having having the vocal in the center speaker, which gives like a lot of space for the rest of the music. So we use Center One in a way that we still keep some of the stereo, but we do take some of the vocal to put in the center speaker, and it has worked very well.
Yeah. And then besides that, just like some good compressors that we link together that have like a sidechain input, so they can be used as kind of a stereo compressor on the objects, like a limiter, and all the rest I think is more creative, where we come up with like a cool delay or a cool effect.
Yeah, mostly effects.
Yeah.
Great. Well, again, I would direct people to check out the Yatra record on streaming services. There's some other stuff coming up soon that we'll be able to announce as well, which is exciting. And with that, Natalia Schlesinger, Robin Reumers, John Scanlin, thank you three so much for your time and for answering all of these questions on today's Dolby Atmos Music Community Session.
Thank you, Bob, for the invitation.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.